The Self-Helpful Podcast is brought to you by Ziglar, your premier source for equipping life and leadership coaches. Visit Ziglar.com and let them inspire your true coaching performance. Welcome and thanks for joining me as I talk with today's most important influencers, guides, and changemakers to uncover what truly drives them and extract the big takeaway from their personal journeys and their greatest wisdom. I'm your host, Kevin Miller, and this is Self-Helpful. In this episode, I'm wrapping up our series on thinking big with what I call the big idea, the big takeaway, and the big action. I do it with every series we do. And our catalyst for this series is Dr. Benjamin Hardy, the concept of his new book with renowned business coach Dan Sullivan. Book's called 10X is Easier Than 2X, How World-Class Entrepreneurs, I would say just people, achieve more by doing less. And while I'll testify that the entrepreneurial mindset is really key for embracing this 10X concept, you don't have to be that actual entrepreneur. You can harness other methodologies, which we covered some in part 2, previous to this show, and I'll review it again here. If you've ever heard the concept of 10X, you have not heard it this way. That's why we're talking about it here. It's not just thinking big. It requires thinking completely differently. That's what's exciting and hopeful, and why it is a revelation to myself and so many other people right now. As Ben and my dad, Dan Miller, who I had on part 2, as they actually, Ben and Dan Sullivan showcase, it's easier this way to think this way, 10X. That is the point. In part 2, I dissected the issue more with my dad, Dan Miller. I'm getting my Dans confused. Dan is the renowned author of 48 Days to the Work and Life You Love, and host of the 48 Days podcast. And what was so awesome is that he's 75 now. He says, it's revolutionizing my business, this 10X concept. So he and I really dug into the self-image issues around being able to consider a 10X mentality. I feel that's the crux of whether you and I are able to actually leverage the concept in our own life and work. So from those 2 conversations with Dr. Benjamin Hardy about his book, along with Dan Sullivan, and my conversation about the book with my father, Dan Miller, I pulled out 6 primary highlights that are what I am working to embrace for myself, my business, and my life. So join me here. We'll walk and talk through them. All right, so here's the 6 things that really jumped out to me. Number 1, doing more is a recipe for mediocrity. That's what the 2X thinking is. Linear thinking is what they talk about in the book. We talked about in the shows. We tend to think naturally in linear terms. 1 + 1 = 2. It works, but it's slow and it can be exhausting. And there may be a place for it, but we're talking about when you want to, when you're open to making a big jump. I mean, we love being forced to do the impossible, or we at least love seeing others forced to do the impossible. It's the movie, right? Where the world's safety is on the line and the leader asks his team to produce some great result. And they say, yeah, we can do that in like 6 months' time. And the leader says, well, figure out how to do it in 48 hours or we're going to die. We love that because what do? They throw everything off the drawing board and start thinking in radically different ways, really outside of the box. And there is, in that scenario, there's no way that they can do more to create the equivalent of 6 months of work and drill it down into 48 hours. They have to do dramatically less. Again, that's the hope here, that when you take this 10X thinking, you're freed from, okay, if I want to do a little bit better, I want to 2 times what I'm doing. I need to do more. I need to buckle down. I need to work later hours. I need to spend more money. I need to whatever. And that's the linear thinking. And it's exhausting. It's this, when you've really want to put everything into a huge context, you've got to think so dramatically differently and do a lot less. That's what their point is. 10X is easier than 2X. Even if, in my little analogy, even if you stayed up for 48 hours straight to get it done, well, that's a heck of a lot less effort than 6 months of toiling away, 12-hour days, 14-hour days, 8-hour days even. Make the idea so big and seemingly impossible that there's no way you can achieve it by doing more of what you're doing now. You've got to do it differently. Again, you don't have to risk anything to do this. This can be an exercise as you're going along doing things just as you are today. You do not have to burn the bridges here. Number 2, That's the point. It's a no risk exercise. If I offered you 10,000 in cash to think of ideas on how you could possibly make 10 times your current revenue or have 10 times more time margin in your life in 12 months time. Okay. You got to do it fast. And you're going to get the money. If you simply show you made a solid effort, you do it. You go, okay, fine. And chances are, and you got to impress me, chances are you'd rock your world and going, holy smokes. Now that I'm thinking about that, that's some big possibility. And jointly, seeing the inefficiency of so much of what you're doing now and go, gosh, a lot of what I'm doing now is there's no way I'm going to 10X things. I'm barely going to 2X things. That exercise itself is worth much more, I think, for most people than $10,000. And if your brain struggles to do this, stay tuned for the next point that I'm going to cover here, okay? Because not everybody's the same. Not everybody has the same skill sets, and you don't have to either. But again, this can be a no-risk exercise. So number 3, your requirement is to innovate. Okay, part 1 and part 2 of this series, I'm not sure that we use the word innovate. Maybe we did in part 2. But as I'm tasked with looking at all this and going, my gosh, man, what are the big points that jump out from these conversations that I'm the only one, privy to all of it. And it was innovating. That's the point. So if you've ever seen the MacGyver series, so when I was a kid, MacGyver, I'm old, I'm 52 years old. So MacGyver was a big series on TV. And I think they redid it with another kid at some point on some network, but MacGyver. So, in that scenario, there's no time to find the right time and have the necessary ingredients to do something. You're in a runaway train. There's no brakes. It's headed for a broken bridge over a 1,000-foot chasm. And all you got's a leather belt, a lighter, and an old typewriter. Okay. So MacGyver, he figures something out. He makes it work and he saves the day. And the point isn't trying to do things without the right resources. Don't get lost on that. It's just about innovating. And maybe your innovation is, how do we get the exact right, perfect resources fast, not in 3 years, but in 30 days. The things that we think is necessary. Okay. 10X thinking, it requires saying, okay, I'm going to have to ditch like 80% of what we're doing. It goes to that aspect of good to great. There's a lot of good things that we're doing, but are they great? And if you were tasked, you were incentivized by a good thing or a bad thing, here's $1 million if you can make this happen, or here's a gun to the head of a loved one. I know it's terrible, but you get the point. If there's a big enough motive, it's amazing what we do. We just don't want to be under either of those pressures because we just kind of would rather the status quo. Me too. On a given day, man, I'm looking forward to taco night right now, and not some of this right now. But if you find yourself and go, yeah, I would like to 10X this things. I would like to make things easier. I would like to progress. And not just labor and toil away. This is the methodology. Number 4, consider if you're the right person to fulfill this exercise. Okay. I didn't say consider if you're the right person to 10X. Some of you can 10X and some of you can't. I don't think that, but are you the right person to fulfill it? If you're the one listening right now, you may be the one coming to the table going, okay, guys, I heard this message. These guys wrote a great book, great premise. I love it. I believe in it. I'm not the guy to fill the role or gal to fill the role. We need somebody else to. If someone came into my business or life as an analogy with a massively positively altering perspective that required me to employ some radical financial understanding and maneuvers, I'd want to take action on that. But money, numbers, finances, those are foreign languages to me. I am a word guy. I'm a wordsmith. I am not a numbers person. I admit it. So what do? Say, well, it's not for me. That's one option. Can't do it because I'm not a financial guy. Or go, oh my gosh, I got to toil away and become a finance guy. I don't want to do either of those. I'll hire somebody, partner with somebody to fulfill this skill set for me. I instigate it. Maybe I pay for it. I own it, whatever, but I'm not the right person to fulfill that role of actually doing it. So to do this, to think outside of the box, to really innovate, it might not be your skill. You have great skills elsewhere, not in this arena. In part 2 of this series, we talked about the working genius profile from Patrick Lencioni's group. I can't remember the table group, I think. And, but workinggenius.com, you can go there, take it, and it'll show you where your working genius is. And this really fits in line with the working genius of Wonder, WONDER. That's mine. So this kind of stuff fits me well. Another one, Spark Type, SPARKETYPE.com. That's Jonathan Fields. You can take that one for free. And I think on that one, I'm a maker. Same thing. This fits my skill, but it's not going to everybody. So I'm going to be a good one to come up with all these ideas. Now to execute them well, I'm not. I'm going to have to bring in other people to do that. I don't think any of us can do all this alone. We need people. And at the front line of this 10X thinking, that may not be where you're skilled. So find somebody who is. Again, I'm great at this innovating type stuff. I'm not so great at growing, maintaining, administering, managing. The list of those things is necessary to bring it to fruition. I'm only good at one part. However, and we talked about this in part 2, I'm still going to hire help. So as I look at my own business right here, this is my personal, my personal development business here, my podcast and my book and the other things that we're looking at doing. I'm hiring other people because I still can't see the forest for the trees in my own work. You're going to be best off with this 10X thinking to employ some other people, ask, mentor, hire, whatever it is. Number 5, envision yourself there. Can you see yourself? 2 pieces of this. Can you see yourself as someone to go after a huge goal? I mean, comfort and security is what we all know and what we gravitate for. I don't care who you are. If you think you're a risk taker, if you think you're a renegade and a rebel and do big things, I think of myself that way. And yet, if you look at my life every day, I'm pretty prone to seek comfort. What I know, I'm prone to seek security, and not risking too much. If I tell others, it provides accountability. So you may want to tell some other people, get some other people on board with you in this. So watch who you tell it to. Okay. Watch who you tell it to. Even a spouse. I had to deal with this with my own spouse. I love to shoot for the stars. Yeah. Shoot for the stars. And if I only end up, 100 yards away, well, hey, I'm further than I was. And my wife has a different perspective. And when I shoot for the stars, she starts believing in the stars and we don't make it. It's really disappointing. There's not a right or wrong to either of those. I learned to temper what I would say and to say, man, my shooting for the stars, I tell her, is maybe just, a lot shorter than what excites me. Well, it's a great way for me to under promise and over deliver and be a hero in that sense than the other way. Now, somebody else, I might tell them, really, I'm going for this. And they know that. And a lot of times most of the time, I probably never reach the stars that I'm shooting for, but I get pretty far. And you're also going to have some people who are just going to minimize you. It's a threat to them. So watch who you talk to about this. But can you see yourself going after a huge goal? You're going to do well, again, to align yourself with somebody who does believe and support and encourage you. And if you can't find that person, read Zig Ziglar, See You at the Top. And he's a guy who will help you believe in yourself. But then the next piece of this is, can you envision yourself at the end goal? What would 10 times the money you make now, your take home pay, what would that look like? Or for your business, your gross or your net take home pay, either way, what would that look like? How would that feel? What would it do to your circumstances? Would you feel guilt? Would you feel thrilled? Would you feel abundant? Would you feel, at risk? What if you had 10 times more time? I got a friend younger than I am, has a business that's just killing it. He needs to work like 4 or 5 hours per week. I am not at that place. I can't imagine that. Can you? Because some people are going to look at that and go, that scares me to death. What am I going to do? Look at myself in the mirror all day, play golf? What am I going to do? Get real with it. Can you see yourself with the end goal of 10Xing whatever, of having dramatically more than you have now? And look at that. And it may help you decide that, I don't want to do that. It's not worth it for me. I don't even care. Or you may realize, I really would like to be there. I could provide for my family. I could provide for others. I could feed a third world country, whatever you want to do with that. Or I could take the time to pursue X, Y, Z. But you look at it and go, I can't really see myself there. Then you know where to work on that. Start working on your own mindset. I think that this is such a crux of why so many people don't do it. It sounds good. It makes sense. It might even seem possible or probable, but I don't really see myself in there. And we just sabotage ourselves and end up feeling guilty or end up wasting time or sabotaging things. So what would it feel like? Would it be comfortable? Would it be believable? If not, that's your stumbling block, and stick there right now. Don't do a 10X action yet. Right now, just realize, man, I don't even have my head around what that would look and feel like. That's fair. Man, you're human. Me too. Now, one caveat to that is I have had it in my own life, and I've seen it with other people, where you can't really see it. But whatever the 10X thing is, it just has to happen. It just has to happen. That's what happened. I've told the story before real fast with my house that I built 16 years ago now. And at the time, I did not have the money. I didn't have the time. I did not have the knowledge. You usually need at least two of those three things. I had none of it. I just had this burden of wanting my kids to grow up in a certain environment out here in the woods. And it was important to me. It's kind of a first world problem, but it was important to me. I'm not going to discount it. It was important to me, and it's been of huge value to me and to my family. And I just wanted it so much that even regardless if I could see myself there or thought it was possible, I just had to happen. Kind of like back to the life important, all life important, the world's going to end kind of idea. It felt like that to me. That can be a big enough motive to get you to go forward anyways. Kind of the Ruth Soukup type thing. She's an author, Ruth Soukup, and her book is Do It Scared. That's another one, but it's questioning. Where are you? Where's your motive? Where's your belief in this? Number 6, last one here. 10X can be a season. I thought about this when I was talking with Ben, that it can almost feel like, oh my gosh, I got to live the rest of my life with everything 10X. That can feel kind of overwhelming and exhausting. Now, on one hand, I think Ben is saying, man, you start living this way, it starts to become the norm. It starts to become comfortable. And again, the book's called 10X is easier than 2X. He's saying this lifestyle is actually easier. That may be, regardless. Right now, you can also look at it as a season. Maybe you're going to have times of innovating and big jumps that will become the norm for you. And it may, again, become that, and it's every day. Or you might have some big moves. Man, we 10X this. We 10X the business in our company, or my personal revenue in my job, or 10X my time that I can devote to family and adventure and art and whatever you're trying to do, whatever it is. You might make a big move, and it's a big effort. Again, Ben's saying it's actually easier, but it's innovative, and you're thinking differently. And I look at that and go, that can be taxing. Maybe it's a cycle, and you achieve that. And then there's a time of refining and maintaining and kind of getting your head wrapped around it. And then you might do it again at a later date. But to look at that, and again, I'm trying to take away the obstacles that would keep you from considering doing this in your own life. Zig Ziglar has a famous talk that he does on the amount of productivity that we all have the day before we go on vacation, right? Every day is kind of the same. We go along doing our stuff. The day before vacation, man, we are laser focused. We're killing it to get everything done, all the I's dotted, all the T's crossed, so we can go out of town and have a good, relaxing time. It's amazing. He's talking about how amazing it would be if we could do that every day. Now, it's a great concept of what we can do when we're focused. Now, we also, I look at that and go, gosh, it's hard to keep that pace up every day. But it is an interesting concept. It's kind of like in a football or sports game, when football, especially, that's what I grew up with. And, you're behind by 2 touchdowns and there's only 4 minutes left in the game. Dude, everything goes out the window. Everything goes out the window. They're trying all kinds of stuff. And you kind of look and go, well, why didn't you just do that at the beginning of the game and just kick butt and get 4 touchdowns right off the bat? It's an interesting concept. But you can look at this as a season and a cycle to 10X something and then step back and go, okay, my gosh, what do we have here yet? Don't look at it as this overwhelming thing you have to do for the rest of your life. Although I think Ben is saying, just try it, guys. You're going to find out this 10X stuff is literally easier. You're going to work less. And if that's the case, then maybe it is something we do every day. And I'm saying that because I'm on the journey too. I'm whiteboarding stuff right now going, okay, how do we take this stuff and really implement it, put it into our lives, into play in our lives, and give it a chance? I'm hoping you will give it a chance, just as I am working to give myself a chance in this 10X is easier than 2X type concept. Well, friends, thanks for joining us on this journey as we elevate our own experience and improve the way we show up for others. Again, thanks to Ben Hardy, Dr. Benjamin Hardy, and his co-author on this book, Dan Sullivan, 10X is easier than 2X, how world-class entrepreneurs achieve more by doing less. And as I said in the intro, I want to put world-class people, achievers, aspirers, strivers, whatever it is, because this is not just about work, not just about your career. It is about life. It can be, if you will let it. I'm looking at it in that capacity beyond just work, but the entirety of my life, my family, the whole deal. If you appreciate this podcast, friends, And I'd love it if you would share it with others. Of course, please give us a rating on Spotify. It's so important for us. I know I don't tend to like taking the time to give ratings and reviews, but now I realize how important it can be. So leave us a rating on Spotify. On Apple, you can leave us a rating and a review. Doesn't have to be a 5-star review. Be honest, but tell people what you got out of the show and what value there might be for them. You can subscribe on YouTube to watch full episodes, and you can find a zillion clips all over social media that are great clips to share with other people or just get a concept of what a show's about. See if you want to listen to the whole thing. Anywhere, Kevin Miller CO or kevinmiller.co. That's where you will find me on YouTube, social media, and all that jazz. If you want to learn how to master your own inner drive, get my book, What Drives You, on Amazon right now. You can find it any format you want. And until the next show, until next time, stay driven.